about this rumor that you are really hired Mr. Stark?
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. Shaboop, shaboop. I am your host, Roddycat. You can find me at Roddycat on Twitter and other places on the internet. And you can also find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can also find me on News Nerds Need Reddit. And also CB Caps on Instagram. And with me tonight, my man Mamelo, the smooth kind of fellow, our man in Brooklyn, Agent_70. You can find him at Agent_70 at Twitter, on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
No applause for yourself?
No, it's all right. We'll keep it moving because we have 2 weeks of things to cover.
Indeed. And not with us tonight due to familiar obligations, familiar obligatas. PCN_Dirt on Twitter, even though he said whatever with all that stuff. If you didn't watch, listen to the last show about our clicks, our year and stuff, then you know what he said about all that. But anyway, popculturenet.com, on Twitter, even though I still see him posting stuff, blah, blah, blah. Popculturenetwork.com, ineedcomics.com, I think newcomicsmail.com, all that. And whatever that new Vine substitute is probably going to be, if it actually shows up. Pardon. And last but not least, the Osiris of this, Tim, DOGG98 on Twitter, the KLIQ Nation on Twitter, thekliqnation.com, on Twitter, thekliqnation.com, almost had it, the KLIQ NATION, and also CB Cron on Twitter. You can also find him at Comic Book Resources, writing his face off. Go check him out. You can find this podcast on the network that, well, I'm about to say the network that pays, but actually doesn't. Whatever, CSPN.us.
Do it today.
And you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. You can go to the CSPN SoundCloud page and go check us out there. And, well, shop.CSPN. I'm just going, you know what? It's whatever. Shop.CSPN.us. Go there and click there and go get some merch from this here podcast and other podcasts on the CSPN network. I'm assuming that link is actually working, but it's actually just redirecting to the CSPN net. Yes, but it's okay. So we are going to get into the comics of actually from 2 weeks ago. From last week, excuse me, because if you did not remember, or if you did remember, we did our end of the year countdown / award of Palooza / deliberations for 2018. And so we skipped last week's books. So we're going to get into that this week with Invaders #1, which we both read.
Yes, we did.
And we started talking about this actually before the show. And safe to say we both liked it.
Yeah, so from last week, Invaders #1 came out, and just before the show, Roddy and I were, figuring out what we were going to discuss, and I made a point of mentioning that this was a surprisingly good book, given that previous iterations of the Invaders in recent memory really haven't started off on a good note. Primarily because the premises of the individual launches just really weren't really very good. But given that this Invaders book is based upon the current status of Namor and what's been going on inside his head, and that's actually what they dive into in this book. Given everything that's going on, this is the perfect time to have an Invaders book.
Right, because it's less about them teaming up against, well, direct foe, more like them teaming up, or more like them coming together to help a comrade.
Colleague, exactly.
Yeah. But we will see how that turned out during the course of this book. Because like I said, we weren't really sure how all of that was going to play out with what was going on with Namor in, I would say, a couple of books, but really mostly been playing out in the Avengers book, or at least coming back and forth in the Avengers book.
Right. Because that's where he's appeared with the Defenders of the Deep for the most part, other than that one Best Defense book.
Correct, which we talked about at length last week.
Yes.
Liberation's show.
Yes.
For bad. So yeah, it was, it was like halfway through reading this from what I remember and thinking, I'm like, because first it was like, okay, Namor was still doing Namor, and then we get this other characters that's with him that I don't recall us seeing before this, who ends up playing fairly directly part of with what's going on with him. You might say,
you're talking about the reveal at the cliffhanger reveal, right?
Correct. But even before that, like the stuff leading up to that, like I'm sorry, because even when he first appeared on the, early on in the book, I was like, wait a minute, that looks kind of familiar. And then they go into the flashbacks and whatnot, or it might have been vice versa, and then it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then the reveal was like, okay, so that's what that was. And come to find out that, Namor's issues is not just with the surface world, let's say.
Yeah, that's it's all been very, Namor's history has been very, I don't want to say convoluted, because it really hasn't been. Once they retconned in the fact that he had been he had amnesia for X number of years. They're kind of incorporating that, right?
Yeah, and they talk about in this book, which is like, and that part is kind of as interesting because of the fact that there's been times where it's like, well, Namor's a mutant. I think that still stands. I'm not sure,
right?
And apparently there may be some ties to that may be coming out in the course of this book. Is this a limited, or it's not an ongoing?
I'm not 100% sure. I have to go back to the solicits to check, but I don't actually. You know what? Let me just check the first page indices.
No.
The whatchamacallit, at the bottom of the first page they usually have something about that,
right?
Or they used to.
Yeah, because sometimes they get a little spider with that lately.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm scrolling through our review copy just to see if
I don't think it says, but in any case, sorry, pardon me. I want to say it might be a mini, but I don't quote me on that. Regardless, I'm sure somebody will mention it at some point,
right?
Or we'll find out this book is ended, and it was one way or another. It ended up being a mini, depending on where it goes. But that being said, like I said, I'm kind of looking forward to the next issue, because it's has my interest for it has peaked, you may say. Sure.
And the entire book as a package is actually really well done. There's that obvious mystery that is just asking for you to pick up the next issue.
Right.
At the end of the book on the cliffhanger page, but Zdarsky put together a pretty good, it's a pretty engaging story, and Carlos Magno with Butch Geis, I guess, on assists in finishing and inking, do a really great job in putting together a really nice looking book.
Right.
And the colorist, who I've never heard of, Alex Guimarães, really does lend a lot to the atmosphere. There's a lot of great coloring involved, especially in the transition from World War II to present day, and and the underwater scene. So it's a really a nice looking book, all said and done.
True that. I think the only other point I had was that the stuff about Namor's past is not the only sort of retcon we get in this issue. Now that I'm thinking about it, because one invader history has kind of fluctuated back and forth over the years, and this is no exception, because we find out that one Human Torch, aka Jim Hammond,
right,
while he is an android, we found out that he does not have the same memory capacity, or the same. He has a memory limitation that as humans does, as opposed to, like, say, the Vision, which he has been
wiped.
Yeah. So that's a little interesting wrinkle in itself, which I guess if they had to do something, because a part of the premise this book kind of hinges on it's not hinges on, but it kind of brings up, is the fact that Jim Hammond is actually writing down the exploits of the invaders for a book he's doing, or something he's doing. Yeah, I can't remember if it was a book or if it was like a series of articles or something. But regardless, so he's trying to get accounts from the other team members, specifically Cap. In which Cap brings up the fact that I was like, well, I was figuring since you're an android, you know all of this and wouldn't need any of us, but then they broke it down as to why that's not the case. So I'm like, well, okay, that's interesting. Or could be, I guess, But that being said, I think we've wrung everything out of Invaders. Like I said, the next issue should be hopefully interesting. Let's get to the other #1 of last week, which we also both read, and that would be Black Widow #1. And I guess, speaking of Captain America, he shows up in this one. So I guess the one thing that's I'm curious about in this is that, and granted, this is me not having read Secret Empire, but I do know what happened as far as Natasha had died, had been killed at the hands of Cap when he was Hydra Cap.
Right.
I didn't know at the time, because I hadn't read it, whether he did it himself or had someone else do it. Sounds like he did it, which that gets brought up in this book. But we find Natasha, who had been brought back from death during the course of, we found this out during the course of that Tales to Suspense miniseries with Bucky and Hawkeye.
Right.
From a few months ago, and they kind of mentioned that, which was good for anybody who didn't know. But we come to find out that she still's not that many people know that she's alive, but apparently Cap does, which you would think those two would not be on the best of terms because of the fact that one killed the other. But they seem to be civil at the very least, except for that one little jab that Natasha just happens to put in, when he leaves.
Sure.
He leaves. But outside of that, the rest of the book is Natasha trying to find a new purpose for herself.
Right. So there's a couple points.
Yeah.
There's a couple points that I wanted to make on this. First, did you get the Bird Box reference like right away?
Considering I had not watched it, no.
Well, I haven't watched it either, but you've seen all the memes with the blindfold.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing her blindfolded in the beginning of this book, I was like, wait a second, Bird Box just came out. How did they get this in? I'm kidding about the reference, but it's just funny that, that so recently, or at least coincidentally, coming off of the release of that movie on Netflix, we've got Natasha, mowing down, bad guys in a freaking blindfold.
Right. I mean, so it's worth noting that the book is being written by the Soska sisters, who are, if you've been around the internet for any length of time, you know them to be fans of the horror genre.
Okay.
And I don't know if what all they've done, but I've heard of their names before. So this book doesn't. I'm not gonna say shies away because it's not even the case. It's not like he gets graphically, it doesn't get like graphically violent, but you can kind of see where there's some, where they're gonna put a little bit of their magic in there,
right?
And go ahead.
Well, to that point, I wanted to mention one of the things that basically this book is divided into two stories. One is the lead story where Natasha is kind of dealing with, I don't know, it can't be her first interaction with Cap since she was brought back, but it's definitely one of the few since she's been back. Right. And that's the first half of the book. And the second half of the book, we're sort of in her mind, and I don't, I've mentioned to you in the recent past that I've been kind of binging in the doldrums, but before new television started to come back on before new shows started to, or new episodes started to hit television waves, or the cable stream, post New Year's, I was streaming, or I was binging the Showtime series Dexter. We know this is about a serial killer who does his thing as while he's under the guise of being a forensic specialist, right? And a lot of the internal monologue that you hear in Dexter, I sort of recognized here in the Black Widow. And I know you haven't watched Dexter yet, but it's something about how she has to release the killer instinct before someone gets hurt,
right?
And I had flashbacks to just the ideas behind Dexter, so I thought it was pretty interesting to see that played out here.
Yeah, see, I know enough about Dexter to know that there is the case of that, and yeah, I would agree with that all as well. I mean, who knows? Maybe that's where they took some inspiration. We don't know. But yeah, I thought that part was like, well, she's got this, which is something I think they even say in the back of the book, the letters page, that like this is a part of Nat that we don't really ever get to see, because usually she's kind of held at bay by the association with the Avengers and the whole no killing thing,
right?
Which I mean, that's been brought up before in the Avengers, but that's the side point. So this is her being able to just kind of let loose, like you say, and she's in the right place for it, which they are being Madripoor. I guess one of the probably 2 or 3 places in the Marvel universe where she could do that, and she finds herself in a predicament that's, gives her reason to cut loose,
right? I thought it was funny that she was dressed as a certain other Marvel character.
And so I couldn't, and I thought I knew who that was, because especially she even mentions the association with another Marvel character who's, but I was like, wait, did she actually ever dress like that? And I don't remember if that was good, but it probably did. I don't remember.
No, but he did. So, that's, it's funny that they all bring it up.
Right. In fact, yeah, she does in fact mention by name, and it's like, oh yeah, because I thought about that. I was like, well, yeah, okay, there's that. But I thought, because even when the lady who's named Tiger brings up the fact that it was like, redhead, questionable fashion sense. I'm like, yeah, you seem like his type.
Yep.
Situation. I was like, but I don't remember who she referenced, dressing like that. But it doesn't really matter. But because we all knew who he was talking about,
right.
For a minute. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So, but yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what goes on in this book. Obviously, there's gonna be some ish. So
yep.
All right, let us move on to what else? Fantastic Four number 6.
Alrighty.
And okay, Fantastic Four number 6. So after the events of the wedding, which did finally go off without a hitch, great, we find our team going to Latveria to catch themselves helping Doom, who apparently doesn't need any help. because he already has his own help in the form of his own herald.
Victorious.
Yeah, no, right? And I was like, that's a interesting name for a for a I don't know if she's a hero or villain at this point, but regardless of someone's name. But hey, you know what? Whatever. It's
She's
Doom.
a pawn,
Right?
and you know,
the part about it was because that name works in two different ways. Because I was like, okay, I see where it comes from, but also Victor,
right?
as in Von Doom. So I'm like, well,
Exactly.
a little self-serving there, but which I think if I remember correctly, she named herself that.
Well, no, Vic did.
He did. Okay, yeah, because I remember it coming up. I was like, all right, well, sure. Which is something that goes back to issue 1 and that I totally forgot about.
Exactly.
And the other thing about this before we get into the meat of it is, or I guess in addition to getting into the meat of it, is because one, Galactus comes back and he's over Latveria, which is the reason why the Fantastic Four is going there. And Doom says, "No, you ain't got to go. I got this myself." But I think he kind of knew the Fantastic Four was going to come there regardless. And the thing that interested me as much was there was no mention of Marvel 2-in-1, because if you remember, which you were reading it also,
right?
A kind of similar story. Well, the shades of a similar story happened in the course of that book, or at least got brought up in the course of that book, which was another dimension's Victor Von Doom saved the Earth against Galactus because Reed couldn't do it for whatever odd reason, and I'm kind of slightly surprised they didn't mention it. But I guess
well, they were off world one,
right.
Half the Fantastic Four, so that's probably why. And two,
well, yeah, two that was there,
right?
Wait, didn't we already see this happen? Like, wait, we already see what could come of this or something like that. Which maybe it could, maybe there was no reason to,
right. I mean, ultimately, they're the Fantastic Four that kind of used to seeing Galactus come up. But I thought that this was, one of the cool things that came out this week or last week was director's cut of this book.
Which I thought was sweet.
It's so informative, and I've always loved it when Marvel and DC have put out these director's cut editions where you actually see the script that especially on the Marvel side, the script that some of these writers put in that are a combination of the old school Marvel method and like full script, and that's sort of where Slott is in this. So he does give the artist, in this case Aaron Cooter, a lot of leeway in composing what the page looks like, but ultimately there's some notes in there about what Slott wants to see, and just to see it translated onto the page is remarkable. And also to see black and white to ink to colors, to see how the colorist is really enhancing the art,
right?
After it's submitted to the colorist. But I have to say that that this was a pretty entertaining book. Like you said, we have that first issue appearance by Victorious coming back. And it's and what's cool about this, and forgive me for being old school, but it's nice to see Doom being Doom again. Like he's we all know that he's got a little bit of a redeemable quality to him, but it's still great to see Doom being the best villain in the MU.
Although it's I think it may be fair to say that in this issue we haven't quite seen a villainous turn from him. We basically see him being like, "Hey, look, this is my land. I'm going to protect this, and I'm gonna keep you out of this kind of situation."
I think we have seen at least a hint of the villain, because of my suspicion that Victorious, in becoming Doom's new quote unquote herald, is actually a cog in Doom's larger plan.
Well, yeah, and even the last page even mentions that part.
Right, and Reed is picking up on it, and it'll take him a second to figure it out. But Doom is definitely stating that there's something more to what we're seeing here. We'll see what happens in the next issue. But yeah, like I think it's the last page that kind of cemented it's nice to have a villainous Doom back.
So yeah, Twitch, we also found out in Marvel 2-1 is like, it's kind of hard for him to escape that, which is kind of a bummer, but at the same time, you know what? Yeah, Doom be Doom. Because I mean, even in his redemptive phase, there was still a little bit of ruthlessness in his operations, from what I remember.
Sure.
To a certain point, anyway. So it was only one slot, which I should go back and finish reading that when he took over as Iron Man or whatever. But anyway, that is that, and that's Fantastic Four #6. So we will see what happens as a part of that. We both read. Guess started to round out this the last week's book, so we can get to this week's books real quick. Black Panther #8. And then we can kind of skim through what else we've read for last week. So you said that he may have found his path in this issue, and I kind of agree, but I also said that, and I don't know if you noticed this, he kind of went Punisher just a little bit. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna say this. It's not like T'Challa has ever been opposed to taking somebody out, even though he has, in years past has not actually done so that often.
Mm-hmm.
And him being in this situation in another place and out in outer space at that, and without, I guess, still without all of his memories, kind of puts him in a different place. And therefore, once the events of this book go off and he's pretty much had it up to here, shout out to Queen Latifah, and it's not like he snaps, but he just gets fed up and kind of deals with the situation as this version of him knows how.
Well, let's just set the bigger picture. Let's make the bigger picture a little clearer for the folks at home. We're still in the midst of the intergalactic Empire of Wakanda storyline. In this chapter of the book, of the story, T'Challa, or I call him the T'Challa of space, because we're still not 100% sure where all these characters lie in the grand scheme of the timeline. The T'Challa of space may have found his path in this issue, because what they're trying to do is build up a resistance, and he's on a mission to retrieve some raw vibranium off of a ship. And what else, some of the human, or at least the live cargo, let's put it that way, on the ship.
There's more stuff on the ship than vibranium.
Exactly. So the live cargo on the ship draws his attention, and essentially T'Challa of space frees them. And as Roddy Cat was mentioning, he kind of hits a breaking point, a tipping point, and he kind of lets the Punisher in him loose, or the John Wick.
Sure, yeah, either one works. So, and I think we at this point we have enough information to know that this is T'Challa, but there are parts of it that still has yet to play out.
Exactly,
like you said, some of the other characters. But I think at the very least we know he and another character are, where their place is in this, which we haven't seen the other character in a minute, but that's beside the point. But yeah, so like I said, I think
I was about to say, suffice to say, I think we're all waiting to find out already. Come on, Ta-Nehisi Coates.
I don't know. Like I said, I have resigned myself to kind of just enjoying the ride and see what happens. I mean, just to kind of see what he's going for in this, because if we're being honest with ourselves, this is basically a Star Wars, not necessarily a parallel, but you can see some shades of Star Wars in this. And hey, corporate synergy being what it may or may not be in this, you know, you can still see it, because part of it is like, you know, hey, what if Wakanda ends up being the Empire? And you know, in a sense, now it doesn't exactly play out the same way as Star Wars does, you know, but again, there's some shades to that. So I feel like there is definitely something, if anything else, inspiration.
Right.
So, and I think this is probably that information. That being said, this might go, or as far as that goes. You know, like this seems like the middle chapter with this arc, and I'm assuming the next arc could be the return of the king or the Jedi, as it may be,
right,
type situation. But we will see. I think. Wait, is that all the books that we both have read from last week?
I think so.
I think so. All right. So if you want to go ahead and
just rapid fire the last couple.
Yeah.
You got to rapid fire the last couple of books. All right. So Return of Wolverine number 4. Persephone sort of reveals herself as the primary antagonist in this issue, and we learn more about the Hot Claws. So ultimately, this is just one of the latest in the series of stories where Wolverine is manipulated into doing bad things, and the jury's still out. I'm just waiting for Wolverine to be introduced into the Marvel Universe proper. I know some people aren't so keen on it, but, you know, he is Wolverine after all. Detective Comics number 996. This is something that PCN_Dirt and I both read. In his words, this is the good Batman book. And it's the one he wants to read. I definitely understand why. Doug Mahnke, the artist in this book, is doing a bang-up job. I'm personally not sure about this whole idea of a blob monster that Batman is fighting. The monster's going after Batman's mentors, but hey, fans of the animated series will be happy to see a character of Kyodai Ken being introduced into the DC comic universe.
Yeah, we have news on that, but yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So I saw that piece of news. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. So cool. And I guess that's it for you. So
yeah, what did Tim do for last? Oh, he didn't talk about it. But okay.
Yeah, he didn't talk about it, but he has one which we'll bring up and after a while.
No worries.
So for myself, actually, there's only one more book because we pretty much read everything, and that was actually, it's funny because I read this a couple of days ago. Ironheart number 2. Because I totally forgot whether it was last week or this week. So we find Riri, you know, in between her duties at MIT, or running her lab at MIT, and going home to Chicago. What we found out in this book that there's an old high school friend that has been missing for a couple of weeks, and she goes to investigate that, and she comes to find out that there may be more to it than meets the eye. There's a nice little part with her and her family, you know, talking about the news and what goes on to it, which kind of leads her more into her investigation. She also has an unfortunate bout with PTSD due to her past, you know, that I'm sure is going to get mentioned again or play out somewhat in this book. But it was a good issue. I'm looking forward to seeing more of this book as it progresses. And that is it for last week. So we're going to get into this week's books. Starting with, and I guess we didn't mention, we should have chopped that one out also. So you want to get to the one that we talked about beforehand?
Sure, why not? We'll have fun with that.
Yes. Avengers number 13. So this is going back to the 1 billion BC stuff, and is the story of the first Iron Fist, who is a young lady named Fan Fei. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, almost has me reminiscent of a recent Iron Fist story. But that is not the same person, because there was another Iron Fist that is now a young teenage woman, but has nothing to do with the name here. Regardless, and hopefully Agent 70 is about to queue up something that
sure. So
that we've been talking about.
Right. So a couple things. So Roddy Cat was referring to the most recent web first and then published Iron Fist story. But I wanted to mention
before that too, because it was actually there was the one before that, which I can't remember the guy who wrote it before this one, but yeah, where she was
Kari Andrews.
Yeah, the Kari Andrews one.
Oh, okay.
Was introduced.
Right. So, but those are the most recent, kind of Iron Fist stories, solo stories. I think, because most recently Iron Fist has been paired up with Power Man in the wake of the Netflix shows. But I think one of the most important things that this draws upon is the basic Iron Fist mythology and the expanded mythology that the Immortal Iron Fist series created, as written by Ed Brubaker and Matt Fraction. That's some seminal stuff. Fans of I would ask fans of the show to go back and read that, because that's some great storytelling and some great art by David Aja as well. What we have here is essentially the story of the very, 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 very first Iron Fist. And it's just really cool to see the story play out. It's a one and done, basically, and it's a remarkable book. Essentially, it gives us the basis for all the Iron Fist stories that have come, that have come since this kind of retcon story. And what Roddy Cat was referring to is a line that's delivered in this book that comes out of nowhere.
Yes.
Comes absolutely out of nowhere. You're reading along, and some of it is what I was going to add just before I hit it is some of it is based a little bit on some of the earliest stories of creation. We're talking straight out of the book of Genesis.
Right. So to that point, so Iron Fist is going along, and we're going along with her origin, and she meets this character who is well known at this point, in the Marvel U, who has come up a couple of different times actually recently, and the character goes, or at least the form of this character goes and introduces himself, and this Iron Fist says, "It doesn't matter." So and both Agent 70 and I got a kick out of that for that reason, because we had it was like you said, it just comes out of nowhere, but it's just like it doesn't matter what your name is, and I was like, nope.
You can't help, especially if you're, if you came up as a wrestling fan at a certain time and you recognize the catchphrase, and you're just reading along, and it just comes out on the page, and you just can't help but laugh out loud. It's freaking hysterical.
I kind of want to ask Aaron if that was indeed the case. Because if it's not, then that was still pretty great. But
I mean, given the timing, given that the character who's introducing himself is mid-sentence,
Mhm.
midway through the name, and
Right, done exactly how The Rock had done it. And if you haven't, just go look up The Rock, and it doesn't matter. You'll see a whole compilation of times where he's done it. You know, during his wrestling days, and it's never not funny. And I'm a big wrestling fan, and I knew this much about it. So, but yeah, that part right there has elevated this issue.
Yeah, that was so fun. Let me tell you.
Yes, but outside of that, it's also still a good read because, like Age of 70 said, you know, you get a lot of backstory into the first. So I guess that's the thing to ask. So some of the stuff that comes up, because even in the realm of well, I guess animated, particularly, you know, shows or anime where the hero or whoever, you know, goes along and gets into fights, and then you see them calling out the names of their attacks. Yeah, they're calling out the names of their attacks. And in this, there's something similar that kind of happens in this issue. Does any of that kind of play out in Immortal Iron Fist?
I hesitate to say that Immortal Iron Fist is the first place that comes up, but I want to say it is because,
as far as this concerns anyway, because I mean, obviously there's precedent before it,
right?
But
the way it's done here, I think it's the first time we see it is in the Immortal Iron Fist series, because obviously before that, Iron Fist had kind of done a little bit of it in the same way that Doctor Strange does it. You know, kind of calls out, you know, something that has an attack or a spell that has a name and a technique that has a name. That's what kind of what Iron Fist would do, but he would actually say it. And, you know, in this, you know, just having a graphic and then having the typeface describe what the technique is, that's you know, that's definitely something that's straight out of the Immortal Iron Fist playbook.
So, yeah, I was kind of wondering. I was like, well, clearly, you know, Aaron's done his homework, which and that series is, like as you said, is well regarded. So it's, you know, taking some beats from there is, you know, is not a bad thing. So that, folks, is Avengers 13.
Oh, and there, by the way, we don't want to leave out the fact that there is revealed in this what may be the introduction of a particular Infinity piece.
Yes. Oh, yes. I almost forgot about that. Yes. And I thought that part was like, really? Because I was like, historically, we have not known any of the stones to come from Earth.
Right.
Or even existed on Earth. You know, they end up here through one means or another, but not just coming from here. But during the course of the story, apparently, yeah, we found out that one of them was found here.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, the very first time that we see these stones, they're being held by the precursor to the Infinity Watch. I forget, the Elders of the Universe.
Yes.
And the Elders of the Universe, you had to get them, you know, they had to come from somewhere before they got them. So obviously that's just ripe for, you know, lots of retcon storytelling.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I don't know. It just seems weird. It was like, well, okay, it's the first one was found. Well, not the first one, but the first one we see apparently came from here, which I guess I could have.
Well, listen, it's like I said, it's ripe for multiple stories to be told. You know, I as I was saying, and you know, just to help wrap this up, this was actually one of the better interlude stories about these 1 million BC Avengers. I call them 10 million BCs. Oh, forgive me for going back too far. But you know, it's fun just to see. You know, this is a kind of retcon that's kind of fun because, you know, we had not yet seen a story of the very first Iron Fist, and I think this is a perfect way to introduce it.
Agreed.
You know, it's kind of weird that there's an infinity element to it, but
well, it's also it is also weird that there's like, it just so happened that these are the first Avengers stories,
right?
the before the Avengers that we know, which I'm like, okay. I guess there's quotes that could be put on that, but it is what it is.
Right.
So, but yeah, you're right. So we go from that to actually something tangentially related to the stones, or at least the keepers, or anyone who's held it, which was the new #1 from this week, Guardians of the Galaxy #1.
Sure.
And so there is a lot about this story that apparently I have missed out on, because I had stopped reading Guardians of the Galaxy, not purposely, but okay, shout out to Matt Wayne who just said something on Twitter, but I'll get back to that in a second. I had basically dropped Guardians of the Galaxy for a while ago, not intentionally, but just because there was a lot of stuff going on and whatever, this and the other. So I am not up on the last couple of volumes of this book and their place in, I guess I'm assuming, Infinity Wars.
Right.
I mean, some of it I kind of knew about, such as, Gamora's part of Gamora's part in this, but that's also a slight forward because I didn't know how far deep it had gone. We know that the Guardians had broken up for some strange reason. Groot's talking, and I assume that may be something that came out of Infinity Watch. I don't know. I mean, Infinity Wars. Maybe you can shed some light on that. But regardless, we find the Guardians in a different place, but we don't even get to that point until later in the book, because we find a familiar-looking letter-shaped spaceship where a whole bunch of spacefaring folks have gathered because of the fact that Thanos has died. Spoiler alert. But we come to find out that even though he's dead, there may be someone to take his place, which led me to believe, where in the world is his son?
Thane?
Yes.
Not sure at the moment.
Because there was no mention of that, which you would think that would be the very first mention that would be like, because so basically in this meeting that we found out, which was kind of a funeral, kind of a funeral of sorts, kind of a meeting of the minds, because of what came out during the course of that thing, led by the closest person outside of Gamora to Thanos, which there being Starfox, aka Eros, who comes across the fact that, hey, even in death, Thanos had a plot.
Right.
And that plot ended up being part of that plot apparently, actually, we don't know if this is a part of the plot, because there's a plot by Thanos that is being played out in death, and Thanos will return, which, if Solicit's kind of bore that out, and I think there's been news up to that. So it is not that much of a spoiler, but it kind of is if you hadn't really been keeping up with the news that much.
Mm-hmm.
And so we find out about that. So during the course of this meeting, we find out that the people are trying to. The reason why all this whole thing was put together was because they need to find out who this person is that may end up becoming Thanos again, and some names and some interesting faces get brought up during the course of this, of people that might have to get dealt with. Forever,
right?
Off the board, as it were. The interesting thing to me was, like, the one person that I noticed wasn't in the running was the person who was actually running the show on that.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it was Starfox that kind of brought this whole thing together, and he's Thanos' brother. And I'm sitting here like, if anybody who could be possibly, in the running for that list could and possibly should be here. And again, there was no mention of Thanos' son Thane at all that I remember, unless he came up on that board, and I don't remember.
No.
So I found that part kind of interesting. And even some people, because it was like, even the what they said about it was like, yeah, these are the people that could possibly take over for Thanos, or get whatever ends up happening. Which I also thought, and I think I said in my notes, it was like, so given the cover, it kind of inspired me to to have some fun with my notes, and I let's just say I referenced a popular Queen song, and I was like, because part of that just sounds like a Spider-Man plot, and you know what part I'm talking about when they talk about Thanos' plot.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was kind of interesting enough. But anyway, after that all said and done, and that meeting goes on, we find out what happens to the remnants of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and they're not in a good place.
I thought that just to as an aside,
yes,
Ghost Rider, the cosmic Ghost Rider in this,
oh yes,
brings that exact point up, and I still think it's remarkable. It's remarkable that cosmic Ghost Rider has become such a mainstay of the cosmic MU. Obviously, Donny Cates is writing this. Donny Cates created the character. It's it's just funny. I think there's a battle that starts during this meeting, and whatchamacallit, the Silver Surfer is introduced to the character, and he's just like, "Yeah, I'm Frank Castle." I'm like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, and I'm sitting here like, wait, because even when we talked about Cosmic Ghost Rider originally, we were wondering where this was in canon, and apparently either you or Derek was like, "No, this actually happened somewhere along the lines," But apparently, as I said here, it's like, "No, I'm from the future," because he was like, "Yeah, I'm Frank Castle. I'm from the future. You killed me." I'm like, oh, "Wait, when did that happen?" But I guess this was And the events of Cosmic Ghost Rider get brought up, amusingly enough.
Exactly.
Which gave me an almost laugh out loud moment of that, of him thinking about that.
Pretty much. So what we have here is, we have a heist that comes up, and we find out at the very end of the book that who's behind the heist, and we have the formation of the latest edition of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
And it's not so much of a formation; it's just like, oh, this is just happenstance because of this, that, and other, with a run-in with what happens during the course of the battle, and the Nova Corps who's on the other end trying to investigate whatever, and then it just happens like, oh, boom. Which I thought that part was like, this is how it happens.
There's nothing like random.
Yeah, I guess so, or quote unquote random, considering the folks that end up in the spot, were the ones that are left from the big battle. So, but I was like, okay, well, I guess I guess it's not outside the realm of and I just realized where my mic was. After all this time, anyway, I guess it's not the first time that the team has kind of just randomly come together through happenstance. So it's still, I guess that still works out. And plays like that kind of happens at least in relatively recent iterations coming from Annihilation, when the whole big cosmic event happened years ago. So it's not outside the realm of it, but it's just kind of amusing to me. But anyway, that's Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm actually interested in probably picking up this book and the rest of it, and I also kind of want to go back and see what the heck came up with some of the stuff, which means I might probably going to end up having to read Infinity Wars.
Or at least skimming it.
Yeah, I guess so. And recent volumes of Guardians, just because I'm sure some of that may or may not have played out of there. Because like I said, the team's been splintered, if I didn't say that already. So the only two are left are Quill and Groot. A very much talking Groot. And they even mentioned, it was like, well, what happens with Gamora, and we don't talk about Rocket. So I don't know what happened that.
Right, exactly. That's a teaser for for upcoming stories.
Right. And it is also made amusing by the fact that both Rocket and Groot were together in Shuri, the last issue of Shuri.
I'll have to go back and read that.
So which was slightly a head scratcher, but hey, it is what it is. Anyway, let us move on to, I'm pretty sure, wait, something I was going to mention. You want to, because I know we read a couple of books together also. Immortal Hulk.
Yikes.
Yes.
Yikes.
Yes, yikes.
Yikes. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you that Immortal Hulk is one of the trippiest books you're going to read. It's actually, yeah, and I give Al Ewing a whole ton of credit. And Joe Bennett, the whole team, Eric Gwynn, who I guess does the color on this book. You know, from front to back, you know, from beginning to end, this book is just a treat to read. It's amazing.
Yeah, and again, brought up during the events of last week's at the Lisa Duchan was recording 2018.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is like you said, this kind of goes places, man. It is. That's why I love Al Ewing. It was like, yeah, you would. Yeah, I need, even though letters page kind of mentions it, it was like, you know what? Because somebody wrote in, it was like, and I think it was like a rabbi or something. It was like, you know what? I never, being a fan of, and actually that was a different letter, but anyway, regardless, like, I don't know, because I think, yeah, it was the rabbi. It was like, I don't know how you would make, you know, the Hulk any more interesting than he probably would have been, and hey, Al Ewing's done it. You know, so to get to the meat of the story, the Hulk is in hell, or I guess gamma hell. That part is still kind of you know.
That's not 100% clear. It's funny that there are biblical references throughout.
Yes,
you know, and this is an ongoing thing that's been part of this book since this volume started, and you know, it's interesting. Like like you mentioned, you know, is this a bridge between the natural, the supernatural, and beyond? And is our gamma rays the wavelength that all those things kind of are divided by? That's sort of what Ewing is playing with here. And we don't know yet exactly what this is. We don't know yet. It you know, there's a lot of different ways you can read this. You know, especially since we're dealing with some, I don't know if it's flashback. It's actually, you know, maybe it's the imagination. You know, maybe it's Bruce's imagination. It might be the spirit of his long dead father riding the gamma wave,
which I'm more inclined to believe that's what it is. Yeah, again, some of that is not clear, and maybe it has borne out, and they're just not picking up the clues or something. But yeah, that's what it seemed like to me, and definitely still dives into the history of Bruce. Speaking of, going back to when he was a little kid, and kind of postulates that the Hulk, as an entity, has existed, well, basically long before Bruce. In a way, but Bruce has inherited it through apparent his means of his father and grandfather before him, in a way.
Right.
And yeah, I guess I'll go so far to say that whether this may or may not be necessary, if anybody is going to read this book, and I this could probably say it for the last couple of issues, if I'm not mistaken, but there is maybe a trigger warning for domestic violence. There is actually you might want to put one on this book, because there are some things that happen in this book that yeah, that kind of bore that out. And so you know, if you are sensitive to stuff like that, you may want to be wary of it. But like I said, diving into Bruce's past, we come to find out this, that, and the other. And coming to the end of this book, we find out there is, again, not knowing whether this is actual hell or gamma hell, that there is a beast or the Satan of hell, because throughout the whole issue, you know, they're talking about, and I guess even in the last couple of issues going into this, there's talk about the devil and this and that, and you know who he is and what it is and whatever the concept of. And at the end of this issue, we may have met said devilish thing, although you know the Hulk himself. We also see a previous version of the Hulk, or in a way comes back, or at least a previous mindset, I guess you could say. Yeah, comes back. That is apparently still there. That's been kept at bay. Just not unlike the way that Banner has tried to keep the Hulk persona at bay up until this volume. So, as Agent 70 would say, there's an interesting bit of retconning going on here, or I guess additional input to the Hulk story going on with this being fleshed out in this. So. Which makes it kind of interesting in itself.
Right. I think that this is going to be once the big reveals are finally done, maybe it'll make more sense, or at least it'll be easier for everyone to put things together. But I think what that's actually going to do is spur rereading of the entire series.
Yes.
To try to put things together, because it's hard at this point unless you have these books and you have the time to really kind of go back and see how it all fits together. We're reading these things as they're coming out, and we don't necessarily have the time to go back and read what happened in the last issue and the issue before that. And this book in particular is definitely a long form story, and it's definitely going to play out over the span of, we're already on 12 issues of trying to figure out what exactly is going on. So I'm not sure when Ewing plans on revealing all, but when it does happen, I think it's going to be well worth going back and rereading the entire thing to see the clues that he's been dropping and to help us kind of put the puzzle pieces together on this, because I have to say, this is an intriguing book, and I guess that's what makes it so fun to read, is that we don't necessarily know everything that's going on. And we can't necessarily see what's going to happen next.
Right. So moving right along. That's interesting.
Oh, you read Friendly Neighborhood Spidey #2, and then we can go to rapid fire.
Yep. There we go. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man #2. You were not here when I think Dirt and I talked about the first issue. And there's a part of that issue that doesn't get brought up here, but
right. Backup story.
Yes, and I'm curious of your thoughts of that.
Boo.
Before we get into it.
Boo.
Yeah, I was like, because even when we were talking to Dirt, and again, that was like a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, I was like, oh, don't let this happen. I don't like this.
Boo.
Which,
boo.
I guess is worth pointing out. That Solicits for April has come out at this point, and there's a reveal that's going to happen apparently, in which yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But getting to this one, this kind of goes into the main story of the first issue, in that a neighbor of Peter's has came to him for some help. And he gets involved in it, and comes to find out that this person gets kidnapped or taken, but before she gets taken, that she left Peter with a couple of surprises. To which kind of reminded me of recent X-Men stories, because I thought these was the same two little kids from X-Men for a second. I was like, wait, huh?
That would be interesting.
Right, but apparently it is not.
No, they're not.
So Peter in this going into this issue has to deal with that, and which he does by going to the most unlikely of sources. Well, I guess as likely as you could get for Peter, because it's not like his circle is that big to where he can just call, Well,
what's funny is that his circle is that big, but it isn't. And I know that's what you're kind of getting at. He is obviously, as Spider-Man has teamed up with everyone in the Marvel Universe, but who does he trust to do something like this? Who can he actually reach out to?
Hey, his best bud, Johnny Storm.
Exactly. And I got to tell you that, just, without getting into the specifics of the story, the notes that I wrote were basically that this issue is just a ton of fun, and it's a great reminder of how fun Spidey can be in the stories that come in between the big event stories and the latest formation of the Sinister Six. So,
right.
I give Tom Taylor a ton of credit. There's a lot of little beats in this book that just ring so true to Spidey as a character.
Indeed. And I am not going to sit here and say that I knew there was something up with that old lady coming from the first issue, but what we found out here, I didn't know it was that point. Because for part of me to think it was like, wait, is this like Madam Web coming back again, and he just not recognizing it as that, or something like that? But no, we come to find out there's more to this lady that meets the eye. Which reminds me of a book I should have read from last week and put in here, but we're past that point. So yeah, that was Friendly Neighborhood of Spider-Man, and like I said, there's a backstory that's going to play out in the next couple of issues that I'm not crazy about. I'm not looking forward to getting to that point.
Right. Well, with regards to the main story in this book, and just the storytelling that's going on, it's just so well done. Like there's just a lot of really fun beats in the book from, like a kind of a side story that actually carries into this issue, with regards to a police officer that Spidey runs into. I'm like, wow, they actually brought that back.
Yeah, no, right. I thought about we meet because in our first issue, Spidey saves a dude and his child, and come to find out that they have relation to somebody that Spidey meets in this issue, who helps him out, because of that. So yeah, that was a nice little tone train. That was a nice shoes she had on too.
Yeah, right. So, and finally, what you were alluding to is that there's a kind of a reveal in the story regarding one of the secondary characters that we met in the first issue, and it's Spidey has a great line at the end of the book. He's just like, "What is happening?"
Right,
and that's what we're all saying. We're all reading this like, "What is happening?" So I give Taylor a ton of credit. The creative team on this book is doing a bang up job, and trying to figure out what's going to happen in the next issue is just beyond me, because the cover doesn't necessarily reveal what's going to happen. So.
Mm-hmm. So from there we go to books that neither one of us have read.
Rapid fire.
And I will go ahead and do this, and mine will be quick, because Star Trek: The Next Generation, Terra Incognita #6. Amusingly enough, if you, and I hate to do this because but if you remember what I said about this book about 2 weeks ago when I mentioned it on this show, which I did not know that apparently it wasn't out yet.
Okay.
Then hey, that still applies. This is basically the end of the final issue of this book. It some beats that hadn't really shown itself during the course of this miniseries come back into play just in time to end the issue, to end the book. But apparently, just like the last couple of miniseries, it seemed like it's going to open up into another miniseries somewhere down the road, probably next month. But we'll see. Let's see. Star Wars 60. So Luke, Leia, and crew are still on the planet of Hubin. They try to get Luke, being restless, and Luke, decides to go ahead and exact a plan to try to contact Sana, who's off world. Come to find out that his message didn't get received, but the people over who pretty much run the moon sent out a little message of their own, which brings in the I want to call them the Skull Crew, the Kill Crew, but that's kind of, but it's called the Scar Squad, which we've seen in issues past, which leads up to a duel between the head of the Scar Squad and Luke again, because they've met, before, which is all a part of an elaborate plan to get the inhabitants of this planet off world, and unfortunately also has a sacrifice has been made in order for this to happen, which we come to find out during the course of this issue. But it was an enjoyable read, and there's a couple of new characters. Well, there's at least a new character that is still around, who I hope we see a little bit more of, because she was kind of dope. But there is that, and I am done. So you're up.
All right. The only two I got.
I'm sorry. I got one more. I'm sorry. Teen Titans number. I totally forgot because I was reading this while we were setting up. Teen Titans 26. Teen Titans raid the Batcave, and that kind of goes how you would expect it would. In that Damian kind of goes off back into the mansion and meets up with Alfred, who they have a little tete-a-tete about recent events that apparently some of which is playing out in Red Hood's book, and that I'm not reading. Because Damian and Jason kind of have this thing going on, which apparently has fallen apart for some reason. And then Batman shows up in the cave to take care of the rest of the crew, but we come to find out that Batman is not the Batman, just a fail-safe device.
Ah.
But the interesting part about it is the conversation between Damian and Alfred, and we also come to find out that someone else finds out about Damian's secret jail, but this person, doesn't seem to have that much of a problem with it. Now I'm done.
Okay. The only two books I've got left are starting with Justice League number 16. This is the ending of the most recent storyline. What you need to take away from this is that there have been some revelations about the Martian Manhunter and his past as one of the last Green Martians, and Starman essentially is the Deus Ex Machina in this story, and leads us into what I guess is going to be the next big Justice League storyline, which is what they're going to do about the now broken source wall and how they're going to repair it. So, undoing Dark Knight's Metal, here we come.
Which some of that I feel like had been trying to be, they've been kind of trying to deal with in Titans.
Okay.
To a degree, because I know that's why they had them tasked for that. But I think we found out that Titans or Teen Titans, one of those two books are, I think Titans is ending. But so whether that plays out into that or not, we don't know. I was going to ask you, is that Martian Manhunter stuff have anything to do with what's going on in his book, or no?
I'm not sure. I don't think I've read the most recent issue of the Martian Manhunter book, so I'm gonna have to go back and read it.
No problem. Sorry.
No worries. And the last book I wanted to mention is one of the other big books this week, which is Uncanny X-Men Annual number 1. So spoiler alert. If you hadn't read the last issue of Extinction, the limited series that sent the original X-Men back to their time, we find out that the one and only adult slim Cyclops is back. And shout out to Classic Materia, who must be over the moon now that Cyclops is back. And now we get the how he comes back in this issue. Ultimately, it's a bit weird, but at least it's all done in one freaking issue. Shots fired at Return of Wolverine.
Which, Tim talking about this on Twitter, and I think he even mentioned, was like, he was curious as how a team with Cyclops and Wolverine is going to play out at this point because of this issue or something. So I may end up actually reading this, and I did read the extension to the end. And I think we talked about it last week, or we talked about it a week before that, or something like that. It was like the hows and the whys of Scott coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of situation. I'm like, okay, so I'm glad they took somewhere and dealt with that.
They took care of it in this issue. So
okay, yeah, I'm about to read that.
Alrighty. So just very quickly, actually, no, we're going to talk about it in Clicks of the Week, all the stuff that is coming up. So here we come, Clicks of the Week.
I would like to say that I put a lot of thought into this, but I didn't, because
let's talk about everybody else's. So we'll stall. So for last week, PCN_Dirt chose Detective Comics number 996. As I said earlier, this is the Batman book he wants to read. Tim Dog 98, his click of the week for last week is Venom number 10,
which was a book we didn't talk about, but apparently he's still liking it. So
he loves that book, man. That's the book that he thinks needs more readers.
This is true. He did mention that last week. Or at least in his notes. So yeah. And for yourself and myself,
for last week, I'm going to go with,
I feel like
Invaders number 1.
Yep. I was thinking the exact same thing.
That works.
So, and for this week,
like I said, I'm going to stall and read off everybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
PCN_Dirt's click of the week for this week was Damage number 13. And his notes on that book are, it's big dumb fun, and he hopes that Damage lives on in the Justice League. For
is he in the Justice? Oh, he's saying he wants Damage.
Exactly. He wants to live on in the Justice League.
Gotcha.
And for Tim Dog 98, his click of the week is Guardians of the Galaxy number 1.
Not a bad pick.
No, it was a good issue. I liked it. I'm going to go with Avengers number 13 for this week. I really had a lot of fun reading Friendly Neighborhood Fighting.
Kind of with you on that one as well, but I
almost chose Immortal Hulk number 12 because of how
that's what I'm saying. That is. I'm like, in between that and Immortal Hulk, it's an interesting pick.
I don't listen. You're not wrong in picking any of those books because, and for different reasons, because Avengers number 13 was just a fun read. Like I said, it was grounded in the mythology of the Iron Fist, and it was just a lot of fun. It seemed like Aaron was having a lot of fun telling it. The Immortal Hulk issue was just, you're just sitting there reading like, oh my goodness, what am I reading? So,
what? I'll do that, and I'll say, a secondary shout out to Avengers 13 because
there you go.
And it doesn't matter what.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter what your click of the week is in that case.
Exactly. So with that, we're going to go into the news section. But first, an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to Cabernet to Torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your tastes and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink Wines, through CSPN. Do it today.
So you weren't here a couple of weeks ago. I shout out to Classic Material who sent me a box of wine, and I totally forgot to try to see if I can get an orange wine. I wish I had thought about that then, but it was. I won't go back through that, but it was an interesting process. So let us get into the cinematic news.
We get into the news.
And we're going to try to breeze through a lot of this because there's a lot of news from the last couple of weeks. Starting with James Wan blasts Academy for dropping Aquaman for Oscars VFX shortlist. Which, I don't know why that would do that. Like, it was the Oscars, if I'm not mistaken, weren't until like January. So technically, December movies still could have, especially when Aquaman came out. So that could have been in the running. He basically says, let's see, when investors criticism positive from visual effects. Basically, he had words for him. He's like, "You're in the department of the unsung heroes of this film," which is true. The fact that your VFX peers in the Academy aren't recognizing or appreciating what you've contributed to the film and cinema is an effing disgrace. So, yeah, and then it goes into what other movies actually did make the cut for the shortlist. So there's that. Next,
okay, our next story is Aquaman has officially passed $1 billion at worldwide box office.
There we go. Yep. Which it had been and I think when this had come by, I think we had just finished recording maybe when that happened. So congrats.
I still haven't contributed yet.
Well, shoot, by this time it's going to be on DVD, which hey, it is what it is. Okay, that's weird. Anywho, and that reminds me of something else from Guardians of the Galaxy that I just brought up. Anyway, rumor: DC's New Gods film will focus on Mr. Miracle and Big Barda. So we've had this rumor in the past, with Ava DuVernay being attached to it, and apparently there may be more fire to be stoked from this one. It's said to be in still a rumor, but it's said to be in early development. Even months later after that first rumor. So
sure,
this actually shakes out because I think we were even joking because I think there was like 2 New Gods movies that supposedly were in the running, but we were joking a while ago. Now that I think about it, I want to say Tim was on the show, or as how far back, whether which one is going to actually make it out. So
not sure.
Yeah, so that should tell you how long ago this room's been floated.
Right.
Anyway, next.
On the DC Universe app show, Young Justice Outsiders, they debuted 2 major Batman family members. Spoiler alert here for the people who don't subscribe. Does the story have it?
Red Hood, and which I think we had been. It was Red Hood and Damian, I believe.
Okay. All right.
I think. I remember. Sure, that sounds right. Oh wait, no, it's not. It's not Damian. It's it doesn't matter. But definitely Red Hood is one of them. So keep it pushing. Deadly Class, Lana Condor kept accidentally hurting people on set, and more bloody details with the cast. So Deadly Class just started on Sci-Fi recently, and I believe the first episode up until recently, it may still be out there on YouTube if you want to go check that out. And I hear mixed reviews on it. A lot of it actually is pretty good, but I haven't watched it for myself. So,
all right. So I didn't realize that this is the same actress who played Jubilee in the movies that I never watched.
Which is the next.
So, I gotta say that Lana Condor's got a pretty cool name.
Yes, indeed. Which going into the next story.
So Lana Condor explains why Jubilee won't be in the X-Men movie Dark Phoenix.
Right, because she was doing the other thing she was is recently noted for, To All the Boys I've Loved, which is a Netflix film.
Right.
And there was a scheduling conflict, which is probably just as well, because from what I remember hearing about the one that she was in, she didn't even have any lines. So they just criminally underused her. And you know, if you see by the picture, she's a pretty dead ringer for Jubilee in the you know, in that look. So it's kind of a sad thing. So it is what it is, I guess. Move right along.
All righty.
She's doing work. She's getting work. So that's all that matters.
Gotcha.
X-Force, Gambit, and Doctor Doom films may be dead.
Wait a second.
Yes, according to a rumor from a rumor site, but sure. Actually, you know what? And there was another. I didn't put it in the lineup, but there's another article out there saying that Channing Tatum might be trying to direct Gambit.
Mm-hmm.
So that one may still be up in the air, but I didn't pull that.
Gotcha.
So moving right along.
All righty. I was like, whoa. Next up, Marvel's new Vision and Scarlet Witch television show finds a writer. Ooh.
Yeah.
The writer is Jack Schaefer,
who apparently is also writing the upcoming Black Widow movie.
And one of the writers of the Captain Marvel movie.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Sweet. Yeah, that's a good for her. Marvel Studios grants wish of I should have moved the thing, but whatever. Marvel Studios grants wish of terminally ill fan to see Avengers Endgame and possibly Captain Marvel early. So that's a nice treat.
God bless them.
Yeah, I think they may have done that for Infinity War, and I want to say DC may have done it for Justice League. So that is cool that they do that. But that being that, next up,
Captain Marvel's pet Goose is definitely spoiler alert. Spoiler alert! Damn it. For those of you who have not read, I believe it was in Kelly's Chronicles.
Run, yes.
Captain Marvel book that introduced this character of the cat, the pet, who was named Chewie. In the movie is named Goose. I'm not going to say what is in the headline. I'm just going to say that Goose is not what he seems.
That's Goose with 2 O's. Whatever.
Talk to me, Goose.
He's a flirting cat. Just go ahead and say it.
Talk to me, Goose.
So I find that interesting because when we saw the trailer, the first trailer, and we saw the cat, it was like no one was really sure if that was going to be the case or not. And now apparently, according to Lashana Lynch, aka Maria Rambeau, who she's playing in the Captain Marvel movie, that may be the case. That Goose is not strictly cat. Now, it's still kind of curious as to why they didn't use Chewie, especially with the synergy, but
confusion.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But again, Goose.
But I like Goose, right? Not, but exactly because of the 90s setting.
Yeah. I get it, but
yeah,
it was weird. So
I just have to add though that we have now hit the point in time prior to the release of this movie that I'm not watching any more commercials or trailers.
Agreed. Yeah, I was talking to somebody last week about this and in Infinity War. Endgame. I was like, just give me the movie already.
Yeah, if I happen to catch, because I'm going to presume that Marvel is going to have a commercial for Captain Marvel and a commercial for Infinity War,
at least
during the Super Bowl.
Yes.
It's going to happen during the Super Bowl, which means we're going to have commercials in the next 2 weeks.
You are totally right.
And that's probably going to be it for me. I may not even watch the Captain Marvel one to avoid anything else. My hope is that they don't spoil too much more, but they're going to put something out that's going to be related to Endgame, I think.
Totally. Yeah, at this point, you're right, because that would be the time to do it. Going back to Black Widow, Marvel's Black Widow movie finally has a director, and it is Laura's Kate Shortland.
They're going to start shooting soon, like within a month or two.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think there was another story saying that I think DC might be beating them out by having two female-led or something. I can't remember what it was, but it doesn't matter at this point.
Right. So the next story is a non-story. You know what's a non-story too? Anyone who was reading comics when the Ultimates was coming out.
And I agree with you, but I put it in here because I know because I was going back and forth as to whether I was going to put this in here or not. Because all of us who knew about this already knew about this, and this is a story that has come up probably a couple of different times in the past 10 years. But Samuel L. Jackson was on Jimmy Fallon, and he recounted the story of how he ended up becoming Nick Fury, because Nick Fury is based off him as far as the Ultimates version of, if you did not know that.
Right.
So, and it's amusing the way to hear him tell the story. So it is worth it just for that.
Got it. All right. Technically, the next story is yours.
First, Spider-Man Far From Home trailer gives Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio a grand. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna take this next one too because I'm pretty sure. Yep, it is related. So that is that, and also Mysterio's Spider-Man Far From Home role mirrors his comic book debut. That being Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who you've seen the teaser, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Which has been out a couple of weeks at this point. Didn't disappoint. You know, we're getting some shades of that. Apparently, there's a few different Easter eggs, including the fact that Mysterio's origin in the comics they are mirroring here. The suit looks good. That's all I'm gonna say. But he still looks like I said on Twitter, he looks like he's going to the amphitheater.
Oh yeah, with all the stuff across his chest. Yeah. So he's got that part is a little bit much, but so long as he has the fishbowl helmet,
and which he does because they showed it in as you can see here.
Almost all of it is forgiven for that, because the fact that they pull this off, and we still have to see more of it, but what you do see in the trailer sells you on the fact that he's wearing a fishbowl helmet. Holy cow!
Right. Because if you watch the Caesar trailer, you can, when he comes in, you can right or not after back.
He's plainly wearing the fishbowl helmet. Right,
because they got to give people their FaceTime. I don't understand that one, but it is what it is. So that is that. Speaking from one Spider-Man to another Spider-Man, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse swings past 300 million at the box office. So that. And I cannot wait till that goes on DVD.
I think we all are. So apparently there's some Into the Spider-Verse fan art that imagines a live action Spider-Gwen.
Yes. So some person named Boss Logic was, I feel like it's the name.
Oh yeah, he's a famous, right? He's a well-known
EDMG or something.
Well, I was going to say he's at the very least a well-known CGI, CG artist.
Yes, because I know I've seen that name before. So he did a rendering, or I guess whoever did a rendering of Haley Steinfeld, who voices Spider-Gwen as the character, and you can see it if you're watching the video. Which sometimes you should watch the video because there's some good stuff that shows up in here.
Exactly.
From that, speaking of Spider-Gwen. Marvel Rising, Spider-Gwen recruited by Secret Warriors in first trailer for Chasing Ghosts special. So we knew about this this special coming for a few months because when it got announced, and I still haven't seen the other Marvel Rising joint, but apparently
it's fun.
Yeah, I've heard good things. So now they're this one's focusing on Spider-Gwen, aka
Ghost Spider.
Yeah,
it's going to take some time for us to really refer to the character as Ghost Spider, because as tried and true comic book heads, you just they even introduced the character's title as Spider-Gwen, so it's going to be pretty hard to break that habit.
Right, I'm not ever going to. She's always going to be Spider-Gwen. I don't care. when Miles gets his inevitable new moniker, he's still going to be Spider-Man. Miles Morales, whatever. I don't know. They toyed around whether they're going to change his, give him a new title or not. We don't know. Regardless, the first special, which has been out for a while, saw the formation of the Secret Warriors, which includes, Miss Marvel, Squirrel Girl, Quake, America Chavez, Patriot, Inferno, and this is in this new special, which is 22 minutes long. They attempt to recruit Ghost Spider, aka Spider-Gwen, and there's a trailer if you haven't seen it already.
Cool. Yeah. All right, next up, in something that I really haven't watched in a while, Stan Lee gives a powerful speech on intolerance, against intolerance, in the final animated cameo he makes during this past Sunday's episode.
Oh, was it? Okay, I haven't watched any of
right. No, but my point is, like, if this was last week's news, then it would be this past Sunday. It would have been this past Sunday's episode of Black Panther's Quest.
Probably.
So I think you can watch this on the Disney XD app.
Yes.
Now, so that's pretty cool. I'm gonna actually try to pull that up when I get a chance to, hopefully I get a chance over the weekend to watch this. So that should be pretty cool. And also, Mark Hamill and Haley Atwell are making guest appearances on this show as well.
Right.
Same episode.
Yes. Which is dope. Which I don't know who Hamill's playing, but we can pretty much guess who Haley Atwell's probably playing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but moving right along, yeah, I think that ad might be dependent on whether you have the cable channel in question.
That might be you might be correct.
I know that sometimes they'll put like free episodes on there, but I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me on that. So try it regardless and see if it works for you. If it doesn't,
or just online, you might be able to see it online.
That may also be true. Yes. Next up, Michelle Yeoh is officially getting her Star Trek show on CBS All Access. Yes, we have talked about this before, but it was in rumor form. It is now official. It will follow Captain Georgiou's time as a member of Starfleet Section 31 division, which, given the timeline that Georgiou was captain, is the part of during the time of Discovery, which is 10 years before the Enterprise, which means that Section 31 has been around for a long time. And I guess this is, I'm going to assume maybe the formation of, because I don't know if they may have, I have still not caught up on Discovery, so I don't know if they may have actually mentioned it during the course of this, during the course of the seasons.
I'll say, do you mind taking the next one so I can take the next two after that?
Sure.
You are the Star Trek guy.
Well, somewhat. Star Trek Discovery confirms Spock did multiple 5-year missions on the Enterprise. Apparently, that is something that also came out during the course of Star Trek Discovery Season 1, possibly going into, because Season 2 just started at the time of this recording, and I know there was some Spock. There was a Spock focus. Spock is now a part of the show, not anymore. Just whoever this new young person is. But apparently during the course of this, during the first episode of Season 2, we found out that Spock's been on the Enterprise longer than we see in TOS.
Okay.
And apparently in the episode, Spock mentions that he served with Pike for 11 years, which Pike is now a part of Discovery. We should also point that out. So, and it says he serves with Pike for 11 years, 4 months, 5 days. That's a long time. So there you go.
Okay. So I'm taking the next two stories. And they're obviously related. The first one is that John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum got a poster and a motion poster. The posters reveal the John Wick looking through the window of the door for the Continental from the outside. Mm-hmm. Fans of the movie will know that the Continental is the in-network
kind of a haven,
the in-network hotel that all assassins use. And you know that there's some rules about using it. And what we got last week was a trailer for John Wick 3. And you guys got to watch this because you're going to see some motorcycle, if not ninja fights, at least sword fights and new doggy friends involved, including attack dogs or tactical dogs commanded by none other than Halle Berry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen the trailer yet. Even in pulling the story, and I need to go ahead and do
Really?
something. Yeah. For some reason, I'm not sure why I haven't yet, because I know I do have it in my YouTube queue, and I
This is one of those. This is one of those movies that I'm probably going to stop watching trailers very soon as well, because I don't want to see any more action that's being spoiled.
Right.
I'm pretty happy with the with what they've shown us in this trailer, and I'm good. I'm waiting to, I'm sold. You're preaching to the choir at this point.
Indeed. Worth noting that there is a John Wick comic book that is out, and I'm pretty sure the last issue came out like a couple of weeks ago. And it's interesting that the comic book kind of deals with John Wick kind of early on in getting introduced to certain elements, such as the Continental, now that I think about it.
Right.
And apparently what we find out from chapter 3, well, actually, it's a spoiler, not a spoiler, unless you hadn't seen chapter 2, that kind of goes to a place.
Right.
Oh wait. Oh shoot. Mark Dacascos is in this?
Say again?
Mark Dacascos is in this?
Hold on.
So I'm reading this article, and it says we got the chairman from Iron Chef America fixing John with an unnerving stare. So Mark Dacascos is the chair, the Iron Chef America chair, but he's more popularly known as, if you go back a little while, as Manny from Brotherhood of the Wolves, and he was kicking ass. He also did a stint in season 3 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But if you haven't seen Brotherhood of the Wolves, he kicks ass in that. Unfortunately, he's not there for long. But
okay,
that's where I know Mark Dacascos from. Anyway, like I said, moving right along. Oh, what happened?
Oh, you got the Ghostbusters one.
Yep. Ghostbusters 3 teaser trailer brings back the original Ecto-1. There are some people that are fans of this because they didn't like the other one, and they don't like women, but that's me editorial.
Well, I mean, ultimately, what I was going to say, yeah, that's your editorial, but what I was going to say is this is more sequel than reboot.
Basically. That's what it sounds like. They're kind of it sounds like it might be kind of glossing over
the reboot.
Yeah, which could possibly set up, because there are those Ghostbuster books that IDW is putting out, and they treat that as a separate universe, the separate universes, and so I don't know if that's what they're doing with this or not, but yeah,
it's an easy way to explain it.
Yeah, if that is what they're going for, but yeah, it is. Next
up, the Glasses director M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong Shyamalan on why he turned down Marvel and DC. So, why did he turn it down?
It's basically I think he kind of thought that his style and what they've been doing with Marvel and DC movies would conflict and probably wouldn't work. At least that is his reasoning. I'm like, that if that is the case, that's good on him for that. Because let's face it, Shyamalan movies have been met with some criticism.
Well, look, they've been at best inconsistent. Yes.
His first 3, when he came out, he had a thing going on, and then that was arguably probably 3 movies, I guess. I don't know, 4 for some people, because apparently some people like The Village. I think Unbreakable might have been his last personally good movie, which is the beginning of the trilogy apparently for Glass. Who knew? I still hadn't seen Split yet, and I'm not sure if I want.
Right, I was about to say I can't pass judgment on Split. I haven't seen it as well, and I think that it's probably necessary to watch before you get to Glass.
Yeah, especially when it's supposed to be going into Glass, from all accounts. And so I guess speaking of Glass, which just came out last week, so there's another article about here that's it did a number last when it up, but apparently it's not. Doesn't seem like it's going to make up its money in the long run. It had a projection that sounded like it would, but if you go by another article, then it sounds like it may not. It's not doing that great. So who knew?
Gotcha.
So it's a Shyamalan movie. Move right along.
Right. So we're going into the spillover, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So before we get to the spillover, I just wanted to mention I clicked on the first clickbait, and for fans of the show who don't know, you really should check out the links that Roddy Cat posts that go to our spreadsheets for every week, because the clickbait for the very first clickbait I really enjoyed looking at just now, which is
oh yeah,
MCU meme that that explains Dungeons and Dragons classes perfectly. So that's definitely worth taking a look at.
Yeah, that's a couple of good gems and that in the clickbait this year, and this weekend. I can safely say that the show note will be in the description. I don't know how long or much longer we'll do that, but hey, if it works out, it's gonna work out. But check it out. Anyway, back to the news.
All right, so I think you're up next, actually.
No, because I did the 2 last ones.
Oh no! Oh, I see. The glasses is the first one. My bad. Kelsey Grammer is joining CW's Arrow as Sideshow Bob. No, he's not.
That would be funny. So apparently he's there. So for the 150th episode of Arrow, there's going to be a documentary called the Hood and the Rise of Vigilantism, starring Oliver Queen and crew, and apparently Fraser Crane is going to be the person doing the voiceover for it. Oh baby, hear the views are crawling, toss salads and scrambled eggs. Anyway, because you gotta get your Kelsey Grammer jokes in where you can.
Exactly.
Next up,
Black Panther almost had a much different ending. I don't know if it was much different, but what apparently has come out is that one of a line or two from the final scene that Eric Killmonger shares with T'Challa was cut. And it had some depth to the exchange, but I think what they left in the movie was, still told a pretty good story.
Right, and I feel like this may not have been the first time that they've mentioned that the fact that it would have been different, because I think they even said something about the end credit sequence and what was the actual end were supposed to be switched, but they decided to go flip flop them. So, yeah. But speaking of Black Panther, Black Panther nabbed 7 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, which I believe makes the first superhero movie, probably. Well, it's not the first starring people of color, but the first superhero movie definitely up for Best Picture.
Definitely, yeah, because that. Everyone remembers The Dark Knight. Dark Knight got Best Supporting for Heath Ledger, obviously,
right?
But it did not receive a nomination for Best Picture.
Yeah, never ever get that nod.
Right. So Black Panther is the first superhero movie to get a nod for a nomination. Also, your note mentions and reminds us that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was nominated for Best Animated Feature, so that's pretty cool too.
Mm-hmm. So we shall see how that plays out when the Academy Awards comes out on February 24th. I have not watched any award ceremonies in probably a couple of decades at this point, at least a good decade or two at this point. I may actually tune in. Who knows?
I think the last time I sat down and watched the Oscars, probably because I was at a relative's house, was do you remember when Slumdog Millionaire came out?
Yes.
I think I watched those Oscars.
I think it swept. I think it did pretty, if I remember correctly. So
yep. So it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
Been a while.
Oh, geez.
So I mean, what it is, and I hate to tell, and obviously the Academy hates to hear this, and this is why they can't find a host, is that no one watches these things all the way through. They kind of dip in, dip out. They check it on Twitter. They look it up, to see who won, of the movies they actually saw.
And if anything, the Twitter way is, I know for the last few years, like the Twitter is pretty much like, if I happen to be on Twitter at the time, I'm just watching what people say about it and watch the,
get the results.
Yeah.
Right, especially if there's a movie that you're tracking. But other than that, there's so many of these movies that no one's tracking. So, But in any event, so you took the last one. So
Mhm.
the next story is the Jack Kirby family released the first Black Panther sketch to celebrate the Oscar nomination.
And I feel like I've seen this sketch before, but I don't know if it's ever been released before. But yeah, if you're watching the video version, you will see the tweet from one Jeremy Kirby, which is Jack Kirby's grandson, with the note that says, "When my grandfather first put pencil to paper on the Black Panther, he had no idea a simple sketch would change so many lives. He wanted to make a small contribution to equality and give readers a hero who looked like them. Congratulations, team, for an amazing movie, first BP sketch." And we see a version of the Black Panther right there. Cool.
There it is. So
And this obviously came along with the or at least after the nominations for the Black Panther movie, which is why that came about. So next up, Millar World brings Reborn to Netflix with Sandra Bullock. I feel like I remember us talking about that series. I don't know if that series is actually still going or not.
don't remember.
Yeah, but yeah, I specifically remember like between like say Dirt and Tim talking about it. So it just shows you how long ago that was. But I guess everything's and the Millar World Netflix thing has been known for a while, so we knew something was coming. So apparently Sandra Bullock is going to produce through Vertical Entertainment, the same production company behind the two-part It adaptation. And looks like Chris McKay of the Lego Batman movie, which that's a weird departure, is going to be doing the direction on this. Oh yeah, he's, I think, supposedly still trying to get that Nightwing movie off the ground, which is sure. Next up,
here's your first look at Young Justice's slick new cyborg design. Hey,
I mean, sure. Hey, he's not on Doom Patrol.
Oh,
yeah. Apparently, Cyborg is going to be in Young Justice, and if you're watching the video, you can see how he looks, according to the tweet from Brandon Vietti from who would know because he's a part of the production staff on Young Justice. I still haven't caught up yet because I was doing a rewatch.
Okay.
So, which there's been some New Gods. There's been some ties to New Gods / stuff in Young Justice. If you hadn't, in the first couple of seasons, so like, not a stretch that this was probably going to happen at some point. Next up. Excuse me. So the DC superheroes series Titans is looking for a deaf and hard of hearing is seeking deaf and hard of hearing actors fluent in ASL, that's American Sign Language, for a series regular role. So by that denotation, I think you can, if you know anything about Titans lore, you know what that means.
Yep.
So they're looking for, so the roles counts for on the Facebook page, male 21 to 24, mixed Latinx or mixed Asian. As a young boy, Max was a kind-hearted soul who never measured up to the expectations of the dumb. It's Jericho, folks.
I was about to say, there is a Jericho out there. Y2J.
Wait. Oh, Jesus. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Then I just remembered. Yeah. Oh, God. So if you are...
Come on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So if you know someone who could possibly fit the bill, the Facebook page is out there and you can see it in the show notes. So, which I'm assuming since they're doing this and and if that is indeed Jericho, which means Deathstroke is probably gonna come at some point.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine them doing one not the other. Either way, moving right along.
So Supergirl, the TV show Supergirl, the first look at
Ducky.
none other than John Cryer as Lex Luthor. The last person you would think would ever, and I'm quoting Jericho here, ever would ever look threatening, menacing, or devious.
especially off of his run from 2.5 Men.
Right.
But yeah, so here's Ducky playing Lex, which I think is already, if I'm not mistaken, may have already started. Probably. Yeah, I don't know when it happened, but oh yeah, here we go. No, it hasn't happened yet. So we'll debut Sunday, March 17th in a role called "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" I am a man. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. So yeah, good. Hey, Ducky's getting work. Good. Shazam films Funko Pop figures spoil a major plot point. And yeah, spoiler alert, being that it doesn't seem like he's going to be the Billy Batson's not going to be the other Shazam. I mean, the only Shazam, because apparently the other members of the Marvel family is going to be in here also.
Yeah, that's a big spoiler.
Yeah,
that's a big spoiler.
Possibly in their Shazam forms, maybe. That's what it sounds like. It says earlier this month, a children's book sparked rumors that we might see the Shazam family in the film. Which, by the way, Shazam #2 came out this weekend. I totally forgot to read it.
Yes, it did come out.
And which I feel like that part is, I'm not necessarily holding back that book, but it's a lot because they're all in that book, and it's like, wow, that's a lot all at one time.
Right.
So, but it is what it is.
Right. Our last story in the cinematic news section: DC's Shazam fights evil and buys beer in a somewhat hilarious new trailer.
Yeah, I mean, people throwing out hilarious like it's water. I don't know why, but anyway, I mean, don't get me wrong. And the beer part, like we've seen it in trailers in the past, and this is a new teaser trailer that may or may not have. I haven't watched it yet. It may or may not have some new footage in it. I don't know. Still looking kind of decent. There was also another article about the fact that Zachary Levi, who's playing the title character, was glad that they killed him off in Thor movies, which I totally forgot he was in playing Fandral.
He wasn't the first Fandral, that's why.
Right. But he was the last one. He was the one who actually got killed.
Right.
Wait, was the first one Terry Always, or am I tripping? Or maybe I'm thinking. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So yeah, so it was because of that he ended up was able to take the part of Shazam. Chuck, folks. Mm-hmm. Anyway, moving right along to the comic book news.
Comic book news. We transition.
Buffy comic reboot promises a mind-blowing Hellmouth revelation.
Who? What? Where?
Buffy, which is the Buffy comic book, which just came out this week.
Did we have to go back to the first sheet?
Yes.
All right. You faked me out here. I was like, what is he reading? Okay.
So, and actually, I think I'll go ahead and take this next one also because it is related. In that Buffy the Vampire Slayer sells out before it even goes on sale, which was from last week, and it just well, excuse me, it went on sale this week, but apparently as of last week, it's sold out before it even came out. So this is the Jordie Bellaire written book with Dan Mora doing the art, and whoever that is doing the coloring, I guess. And of course, Josh Whedon is doing some creative work. I mean, giving some creative notes behind the scenes. So
cool.
Yeah. Next.
All right. Next up, the Supernatural Law creator, Batten Lash.
Sure.
Has passed away. So sadly enough, Batten Lash, the award-winning writer and artist of the long-running comic book series Supernatural Law, originally titled Wolf and Bird, Counselors of the Macabre, has passed away at the age of 65. He'd been dealing with brain cancer for the last few years of his life. Not cool.
Yeah, and apparently he ran he and his late wife, not late wife, he and his editor/wife ran Exhibit A Press, one of the longest running small press comic book companies around, which formed in 1944 to publish said book, Supernatural Law. I have never heard of this book before, so
it's a strip, I guess.
I guess so. So
all right.
And speaking of other sad news, Ron Smith, longtime Judge Dredd artist, also passes away at the age of 94. So again, like I said, he was the long-running artist on Judge Dredd, the 2000 AD, well, stuff. We got Judge Dredd. So,
alrighty. Next up, Thanos, the limited series, is going to explore a new limited series. It is going to explore his early relationship with Gamora.
I guess. Why is that necessary? I don't know, but hey, that's a thing.
Read that stuff before whatchamacallit, Endgame comes out, I guess.
Sure. And I guess also the fact that she was the one who, spoiler alert, killed him in Infinity Wars, apparently.
Right.
I guess you can kind of get something out of that too. But yeah, definitely, it just seems like an Endgame tie. Also worth noting, which I believe I've said earlier in the show, April solicitations have come out, so some of the stuff is coming from there, including some very nice news. Next up, True Believers comic book reprints to set the stage for Avengers Endgame. Speaking of, so yeah, they're reprinting. It looks like Infinity Gauntlet, Warlock and Infinity Watch, and a few other books to come to around the time of Endgame. All
right. So just to circle back to a question of yours. It was not Carrie Ellis, but Josh Dallas, who played Fandral in the first Thor movie, and Zachary Levi played Fandral in Dark World and Ragnarok.
Thanks. Yeah, because I knew the first guy just looked like Carrie. Oh well, looked like a Carrie Elwes from Princess Bride. That's why I, which I knew it wasn't him, but
right.
Yeah. So cool. Next up.
Was it the Marvel Tales?
Yeah.
Marvel Tales Fantastic Four #1 was missing a page, so it's going to be reprinted.
And I believe that came out already. I might have said that came out at the beginning of the month. I can't remember. I think it did.
I think so.
And it missed the page. And I'm not sure if we talked about it or not. Now I think about it. But
I don't think it came up.
Yeah. So, free Captain Marvel sampler is coming to comic book stores. So Marvel Comics will be sending out free bundles of a Captain Marvel sampler to direct retailers ahead of the March 2019 movie release. Scheduled to hit stores February 6th. The Captain Marvel Start Here sampler will include excerpts from Life of Captain Marvel, Marvel Rising, and Captain Marvel. I'm going to assume that's the Kelly Sue comic run, since the movie is being based off of it. I mean, that sounds logical. And then Life of Captain Marvel, I remember you talking a good bit about.
Right.
So let's see. It will be selling in 25. Oh, the retailer cost of $5, but they'll be free for people going into the stores. It'll be interesting to see if retailers take this up. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. We can kind of skip the next story.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that. Natasha drops in on New Year's Eve. We didn't actually get into it, but yeah, that's basically talking about Black Widow #1. So,
So the next story is the X-Men and the Punisher titles are being drafted for Marvel's War of the Realms. I think these are going to be limited series, or are they crossover issues? Tie-in limited series.
Yes. Because apparently there's a lot of tie-ins and a lot of, from what especially if you look at the solicits for April, oh my God, it's like every book in the line is going to have a tie-in issue.
Yep, it's listen. Anytime there's a war in the Marvel universe, everybody's involved.
But that's not true, though.
I mean, war that not everybody was involved with.
Civil War, because the X-Men wasn't involved.
I think they were having their own internal war.
Well, there's that, yeah, and there you go. And there's another thing, they were having their own thing, and no one else was around. We can go on with that, but but now there's precedent for not everybody showing up. But apparently, this one's going to be line wide. It looks like, because even Squirrel Girl, who's never been in a big event, it's got a tie-in issue.
Right.
So weird. Next up, Marvel gives the Punisher a new extremely personal skull symbol, which was from Punisher 6 from last week, I believe it was. So yeah, his skin matches his suit now. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
You know, and
Thanks
if you
to Baron Zemo.
yes, exactly. So, which this is not Cosmic Ghost Rider, or we should point out, this is the ye old fashioned Punisher. Didn't have to make that distinction, but I still find that kind of funny.
Right.
So next up,
the next story is in Web of Venom, the Cult of Carnage, quote unquote, God is coming. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah, and Tim will be happy, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, and Frank Thierry's writing, which I believe Tim was a fan of at one point, and probably still is.
I was gonna say, didn't Thierry write that Carnage series that came out a couple years back?
Probably, I don't even know.
Could be wrong.
It says Black Knight here, but I guess that might have been. But I don't even remember him doing that.
I remember the Black Knight because I was out of Weird World.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. Well, good for those Carnage / Venom fans, I guess. I'm not one of them. Speaking of symbiotes, Marvel Symbiote Spider-Man series returns to the Alien Costume Saga. So Marvel announced that a new series starring Spider-Man that will revisit one of the Wallcrawler's most iconic arcs, the Alien Costume Saga. That the series titled Symbiote Spider-Man by Peter David will explore the weeks when Spider-Man was wearing his black costume, because we haven't gotten enough of that, before he discovered it was an alien symbiote that would go on to become a supervillain turned anti-hero Venom.
Right. And I'm not reading this because Greg Land is doing the art.
Yes, I was going to mention that your favorite art, your and Dirt's favorite artist. Which I still curious is what you think about David Nakayama, but that's a whole nother story for another time. Marvel Team Up returns in 2019 with a new hero. Now, last week, I believe last week being the one we talked about the New Year's predictions, or the last year's prediction, I may have mentioned, or I think I mentioned this. I did mention last week the fact that they were not that they didn't keep up with Marvel. No, I'm sorry, that was Marvel 2-in-1.
Right.
That I was talking about, not Team Up. But because I've talked about a couple of weeks ago the fact that they're bringing back a whole bunch of old titles. So Marvel Team Up is coming back with the first arc, and written by one Eve Ewing of Ironheart fame. So yay for her. And artist Joey Vasquez. And the team up is going to be between one Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, and one Spider-Man, Peter Parker, not Miles, which that I would have enjoyed seeing Miles in Miles in
you can read Champions for that. I think that's
what I mean. They're also in a team settings, and apparently Zub's doing something to them in that book. So I'm just saying team up.
I was about to say I think that's why. One and two.
Yes.
It'd be we'd be remiss to not mention that the Marvel Team Up book was traditionally Spider-Man and X, whereas 2-in-1 was always Thing and X.
Right, and this doesn't seem to, and this is going back to the classic sense of Peter and X. I'm assuming, unless Miss Marvel is actually going to be. I don't know. So the first arc is going to be three issues teaming up between, like I said, Miss Marvel and Peter. We're not sure what's going to go on past that. Although if I probably read the solicitations, I probably could have doled out some of that. So it's no telling whether Miss Marvel is going to be the focus of Team Up this time. Is this what it sounds like it's alluding to?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it indeed going to be Peter and X?
So, well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We're still months away, right? We're still at least another month of solicitations away from finding out what's going to happen in the next issue. So,
or in the first issue, yes, correct. So, yeah, that's the thing. There you go.
Next up, Marvel was 2018's top publisher, but DC had the best-selling comic. We talked about this last week in the year-end review.
A little bit, yeah, to a point, yeah, and yeah, which is I alluded to this story then because I already had known this was a thing. So we, regardless of what was said last week, yeah, some of that still plays out. EA's open world Star Wars game has been canceled. What? Oh, others are still in development. So this is the second EA-based Star Wars game that has been canceled. I don't know what in the world they're doing over there. The first one was Star Wars 1313, which was supposed to be something, and then there's this one, which we still did not know much about what this was going to be, except for that Visceral Games was going to be producing this alongside Amy Hennig of Uncharted fame. So there was high hopes, or there was some hopes for this being pretty decent. But apparently we're not going to see it anymore. So great. Thanks, EA.
All right, next up, Spider-Man 2099's Rick Leonardi is joining DC's Batman Beyond. So artists Rick Leonardi and Wade Von Grawbadger are taking over DC's Batman Beyond title. They're joining series writer Dan Jurgens with April's number 31.
Yay, I guess.
All right.
I didn't know the books were still going on. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez Watchmen tweet spawns new political memes. So apparently, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez quoted the Watchmen.
Yeah, specifically Rorschach.
Yes, and sent the internet into a short tizzy. She is a. I'm trying to be careful with words. I don't want to say media darling, but No,
I was about to say we'll keep it to the fact that she's got a lot of exposure, and I like the fact that she came up with. Listen, she comes up with these things, and obviously she's got a team, but it's kind of cool that they came up with this one real quick.
Yeah, and I feel like some of this because from all the accounts for her, she's pretty savvy in a few different areas. So it's not unlike the fact that she could be a geek and possibly, Yeah,
we don't know.
So, and she's also been on Twitch fairly recently. I can't remember what the reason was beside that. So, but like I said, it's quite possible she is quite the geek.
It's pretty cool that they came up with that quick, though. So,
right.
All righty. I was about to say, next up is something that you were when I brought it up.
Yes, we wasn't sure if that was going to be brought up, but since you already brought it up, we don't really need to go too far into it. In that Kyodai Ken was introduced in Detective 996, who's a character from Batman the Animated Series who tormented Batman on a couple of good episodes actually.
Yeah,
if you haven't had a chance to watch those, go check them out there. Next.
Funko's DC Primal Age toy line adds figures and Target exclusive comic. Enough with exclusives. But the Primal Age is just getting started for Batman, Superman, and the rest of DC Comics. So yeah, this is just a new toy line from Funko with barbaric versions of DC Comics' most iconic heroes and villains.
Right, which the book to talk about just came out this week, if I'm not mistaken, because I know we have it in our thing, and it's at Target. Not unlike the Walmart 100-page giant books. It's a similar thing, but this one's just exclusive to Target, which there's some news about that coming up later. But until then, comics legend George Perez announces retirement.
That sucks.
Legendary artist, yes, George Perez. Well, I mean, it was going to happen at some point. Of Teen Titans and Wonder Woman fame.
What sucks? Yeah. Oh, go ahead, finish up, and then I'll.
No, I'm done.
Oh, okay. What sucks is that it's health related, and what has come out is that this year's conventions that he's making appearances at is essentially going to be his last year of touring.
Yes.
So if you see a con near you that he's supposed to be appearing at, you should try to go.
There won't be that many.
There's a number of cons there. So you're going to have a number of opportunities, but it all depends on your location geographically. The closest one to me is the East Coast Comic-Con in Jersey. And I guess I'm going to drive my way out there. I've been there before. It's actually a nice, mid-sized con. So that's not the worst. It's not the worst location in the world for me to get to. So, it should be worthwhile to make it out there. But for any fans like myself of George Perez, you should definitely endeavor to get out there. I've got a good number of books signed by him, but I'm going to go through the stacks and see if there's anything else that I really need to get from him. Be advised that he's not doing sketches anymore, other than pre-ordered stuff that is going to cost a bit, and you have to get in there first come first serve before he, before the show. So, he's not going to be doing anything at the show. He'll be doing pictures. He'll be taking excuse me. He'll probably be taking pictures, or selfies and autographs, but nothing. He won't be drawing anything.
$100 a piece. Wow, hey,
that's nothing. That's cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say, given some of the prices that I've seen at the couple of cons that I've gone through, and hey, it's Perez art, and it's definitely be going for a good cause. I've got a couple of sketches from Perez, and I've got a Captain America sketch that was only $20, and it's pretty good. So, I'm fortunate to have gotten it. Nice. Moving right along. I guess some good news for one Scott Snyder.
Mine. I'll take this one.
Okay, go ahead.
Justice League writer Scott Snyder and his wife are expecting another child on free. It's expected on Free Comic Book Day.
Right. Whether that ends up happening, we don't know. But congrats.
Around Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So hopefully that happens happily and healthily. Let's see. Next up, speaking of Free Comic Book Day, Koden Shah, known for his manga, has a comics all ages sampler that is going to put out on Free Comic Books Day, and it's going to include stuff like Card Captor Sakura, and the U.S. premiere of Witch Hat Atelier by renowned Marvel and DC variant cover artist Kamome Shirahama, and some other things. So cool.
Okay.
You want me to take this, or you got it?
No, I'll take it. Hold on, I'm just scrolling. Colleen Doran adapts Neil Gaiman's Snow, Glass, and Apple. So this is Gaiman's retelling of the Snow White fairy tale, and Doran is going to adapt it to comics. Okay.
I believe it's going to be in graphic novel form, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah. Next up. Why you do that? Big Trouble in Little China game gets expansion, The Legacy of Lo Pan. So I feel like we may or may not talk about this, the fact that there was a Big Trouble in Little China board game. But guess what? If you did not already know, there is one, and now it has an expansion priced at $39.95. And fans of the core Big Trouble in Little China game are invited to secure their copy with, guess what? None other than a free 6 demon dice bag as your free order bonus. Outstanding, Egg. The expansion is slated to release in March of this year, 2019. So,
okay.
Next.
The crew of Firefly Adventures expands to include Book, Inara, River, and Simon. So this is the board game that
they only had Mal, Zoe, and Wash then, and you
got me.
And oh shit, I forgot the other dude's name. Shit, the Adam Baldwin character. Regardless, yeah. So yeah, there's a Firefly board game, and there's an expansion. So there you go. Next up, DC's Titans, which I think I talked about this earlier or mentioned it earlier. DC's Titans canceled with April's issue 36. Titans has been the team that's been dealing with stuff coming out of the source wall. Basically, they're like first responders for people getting powers to send out of others. So apparently, and as of last issue or issue 4 last, no, it was last issue. their mission has kind of changed because of some stuff with the Red and some things going on, and they still got to wrap up the Raven little storyline. So apparently this book is coming to an end.
Okay.
In April. There you go. That was a decent book. Time will come. Has come.
Next up, Tom King responds to a controversy involving a Superman story that features Lois Lane that was in the 100-page giant book distributed through Walmart.
So not to dwell on this too much, but it, spoiler alert, has to do with some apparently
it's relatively graphic.
Yeah, relatively graphic sequences of Lois getting killed over and over again because of and not for real, but in
it's Superman's imagination,
basically. But nevertheless, they go through it a few times with that, which sent some parents in an uproar because them thinking, and I guess I don't know, want to say rightfully so, but thinking, I guess within some reason that, hey, you're getting this from Walmart, which, you know, for whatever reason, thinking it's supposed to be kid friendly, which it's kind of not, given that. But these giants things have never been specifically said that they were, you know, all ages or kid friendly, or
right. Yeah, or no, I was about to say all ages.
Yes, just to put that there. So
you hit that right on the head, because I don't recall this ever being the case.
Right, and I think this issue pretty much mentions that also. So, that being said, I'm kind of surprised that the hubbub about it has not reached other people, or maybe it hasn't. I'm just been out of the loop of that, because it's like I said, in this case, it's families thinking was like, wait, why are they showing this in this supposedly kid friendly, or what they thought to be a kid friendly book, you know, coming out of Walmart? When the other side of that is like, wow, was it really necessary to kill Lois all that many times, even if it was a dream sequence? And especially with the fact that DC in general has a history of killing off women, you know, and showing it in a couple of different times, you know, and there's that whole fridging thing that's been, you know, from years past. But that's all another thing. I'm surprised the people who would be, you know, in an uproar about that, rightfully so, you know, hasn't come about that. But it is what it is. In which, and I think
it's a bit much over, probably not too much. But I haven't read it, so I can't say.
I mean, I can't either. But at the same time, but like I said, going to what the people in this case, like I said, that whole thing I just mentioned has not been brought up yet. So right. Taking that out of the equation,
I think it's because it's an imagination sequence. I think that's probably what.
Yeah, but still, the fact that, you know, you can see parents being a little bit, you know, it's like, well, this is supposed to be a kid's book. So they're thinking this is a kid's book and it's in Walmart. So regardless of whether it's a dream sequence or not, it
reminds me of the parents that brought their kids to the first South Park movie.
Yeah, or any movies that's, you know, that can be a little over the top or intensive, I guess. So, and then being upset, you know, when it's when it's actually something to it. So I don't know. It is what it is. But apparently, from what we found out from, I haven't checked. I think Dirt said that it was
sold out because someone came in and bought them all.
No, to be fair, I do know that I have seen people in the store local to me, people just going through the racks and, you know, kind of looking for specific ones. And I think, like he said, sometimes that the thing he said, the particular store that he said that would normally kids still having was the one that was sold out. And right. I don't know, like I said, I know there's a Walmart down the street and I haven't really gone to check, but I would assume that's probably gone. And I haven't really been checking for them since the first couple. So
gotcha. That's
it is what it is. That's the thing, you know. Next up, speaking of Tom King, DC offers a major clue for Heroes in Crisis Killer's identity. Again, like I said.
Wait, they're going to do it in April?
Well, it is the 8th issue, so I mean, and yeah, like it's the next to the last book, so then that would be the time that they're gonna. Which I guess I don't know. I don't know what's going on in that thing. and we talked about this last week. We don't know how this is going to end up. So yeah, and apparently the actually going, and I'll take the next one because it also deals with that particular issue. In that, Heroes in Crisis 8's cover teases Wally West's DCU future. So now, as we know, going into that series, Wally's in a place. So I can only so basically this is the problem with solicitations, because if you want to actually get the story, you can't, you don't want to read it, but at the same time you see stuff like this, like, what, huh,
Sure,
what's going on? But we don't know. It could mean something, it could be nothing, because like I said, Wally's in a place during the course of this event and we don't know what's going on. So next up,
Deadpool creator's new comic, Major X, is going to introduce a new X-Men character. So, courtesy of Rob Liefeld, he is
creator of X-Force and more importantly, Deadpool at this point,
and Cable.
Excuse me, you're right.
A character named Major X, who surprisingly has no pouches.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, no, well, even so, basically the 90s are here, but I guess he's restrained, and he's not as bulky as Cable and Deadpool were when they first were introduced. So I guess he's showing some restraint. So that the article, from what I gleaned or from what I glanced over, is slightly amusing because it's Liefeld being Liefeld. And by the way, including the fact that one tweet from James Viscardi, what is your Rob Liefeld? Because he has interviewed Liefeld for his podcast, which you should go check out. Not necessarily check out the podcast. Check out the podcast. I'm not saying necessarily this particular episode of it or whichever it was, but regardless, so there's a what's your Rob Liefeld name generator that was put out on Twitter. So you put in the first letter of your first name and the last letter of your last name and go through this guideline, you can find your Rob Liefeld name. Mine happens to be was it Blast Blade? Blast Blaze. Yes, that is mine.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And yours would be, what is it? Night. I totally forgot.
Hold on, Rob Liefeld.
It's in the article. So I mean, if you're looking at it.
Oh no, I gotta click on the whatchamacallit, the article. 1 second.
Everything I know, but
sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
That's fine. We're wrapping this up soon.
Next up, while we're waiting with bated breath on what my Rob Liefeld name would be, we were talking about Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man before, and there's a story that was at the a backup story in the first issue that's probably going to come to the forefront very soon, and that's what this story is about. It's a mild spoiler that I'm not going to spoil. Aunt May is going to reveal a shocking secret to Spider-Man in the pages of Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
And as I said before earlier when we talked about this, and last a couple weeks ago when I talked about this, I hate this.
Yeah, it's not good.
I don't like it.
It's not good at all.
So, but yeah, so that's the thing. Yeah. Did you find your name or no?
I'm just pulling it up now. So you can move on. I'll let you know.
It's Flame, I believe.
Alrighty. Well, go ahead. No, go with the No Road Home.
Marvel's No Road Home finale teases an Avengers death. Avengers No Road Home is apparently a spiritual successor to Avengers No Surrender, which was the event from last year, which, now that I think about it, I don't think we talked about last week. Oh well. So yeah, so that's the thing that is coming up in the coming months, and there's a partnership with Conan, which we already talked about in season 6. Pardon. And yeah, that's the thing that's going to happen, and apparently Avenger might die.
This is when they finally kill Voyager.
That's what I'm thinking.
We knew you. Alas, poor Voyager.
I mean, that's the logical conclusion because I can't imagine them. Although I don't know, they could get rid of. They probably could get rid of somebody. I don't know who, but and depending on what's going to be the makeup of the team, also going into this. If it's
I'm on the Night Flame.
Okay, so it was Night Flame. All right,
Night Flame.
Yes.
Goodness gracious.
So there you go. That's Agent 70's Rob Liefeld name. I wouldn't be surprised if that is actually how he came across his characters' names. It would shock me none the least. I assume there's unless that interview that Viscardi did may shine some light on that, or that's just something that came across. It is what it is. Star Trek Year 5 brings the Enterprise's mission to a close. So IDW has been doing these bunch of Star Trek books and crossovers and this and the other. So apparently, let's see, Star Trek Year 5 will feature a succession of creators, including writers Brandon Easton, Jody Hauser, and Jim McCann, while co-writers Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, who I believe we had on the show, will pen the first arc.
Cool.
So yeah, so that 5-year mission is I guess going to come to a close. There you go.
Next up, Marvel is launching a Star Wars limited series based on a theme park. Get that.
Yeah, Circle of Life.
Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is going to be a new 14-acre addition to Disneyland this summer and Walt Disney World in the fall. And it's going to inspire a new Marvel comic book tie-in limited series debuting in April. And you know what the sound effect is for this?
Well, that too. Yeah. So yeah, synergy, folks. Yeah. Speaking of, well, no, it's not speaking of anything. Howard Chaykin seemingly distances himself from 1970 Star Wars work in post against nostalgia. So, okay, I'm amused by this because, okay, first let's get into it. So Howard Chaykin in a lengthy message on Facebook, I guess this past Monday, saying that apparently he declined going to San Diego, and I guess because his thinking is that they wanted him there possibly because of some work that he calls insipid analytic junk. And this article is postulating that it's probably his 1970s Marvel Star Wars book, which was the book that came out before the movie. Well, it started before the original movie came out. It had absolutely nothing to do with, that he did like the first 10 issues of, I guess. Actually, I thought he did more than that. But regardless, sounds like he's the first one, and he had a lengthy post about that and nostalgia, including using some choice language in that. So I'm laughing at this because he basically says bump nostalgia, but yet all of the work that he has done specifically recently, including this week's War is Hell #1, is rooted in the past.
Huh.
And if you check out his body of work, you can see that most of his work is like that. So the fact that he's saying bump nostalgia and the stuff that he's written or done art for is kind of amusing for him to say that. So you can go check that out if you want to. I don't know. Next up,
weekly Ghostbusters comics are coming to celebrate Ghostbusters 35th anniversary. So better 4 one-shots coming in April.
So, and I guess there's one for each dimension or something. Yeah, it looks like the one for each dimension, because like I said earlier, the Answer the Call, which is the female Ghostbusters, was 101 that they've done crossovers left and right with a whole bunch of this stuff. So yeah, that's the thing. Bedside Press signed exclusive distribution deal with Diamond. So congratulations to whoever that is. Says, no, Bedside Press is an innovative publishing company focused on graphic novels and prose books. Headed by publisher Hope Nicholson, the company is dedicated to promoting history and showcasing uplifting new voices through thoughtful storytelling. So, cool. Next.
Okay. Yeah, sadly, this was news that dropped just, in the last day or two. DC is laying off 3% of its workforce to restructure the publishing division and to get back to, I didn't like this particular language. Do you have it here? Something like that, to overserve or super serve?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Regardless.
Yeah, that's not cool because, I think that the key to surviving in publishing is to bring in new fans, not super serving the old ones.
Which, if we go by a conversation last week, which I didn't go in on like I should have, that kind of touches on some of that, which was
sure
we talked about.
I mean, this is going to be an ongoing. It's an ongoing thing.
But, yeah,
it's definitely an ongoing. It's an ongoing issue of how to best, how to best do this. This is something that's going to go back and forth, amongst the panel, amongst creators and fans alike. So.
Yeah, but according to this article, the company has been organized into 3 distinct areas as of Wednesday's news: editorial, which will be continued to be overseen by editor-in-chief Bob Harris; production and manufacturing, which remains under the purview of Senior VP Manufacturing Allison Gill; and the newly created publishing support services will handle sales, marketing, and promotion for DC product, and be handled by longtime DC veteran Hank Canlis as Senior VP Publishing Strategy and Support Services. And yeah, there were some unspeculated reports that Dan DiDio and Jim Lee could be among the ones leaving the company, but according to this, doesn't seem to be the case. So, and that, folks, is the news, and also brings us to the end of the show. But first, we have an ad.
Our last ad read of the night is for Funko. Funko, fun at first sight. It's your home for exclusive collectibles, apparel, and brand merchandise. Now, for the listeners of the Comic Chronicles, you can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko for pop vinyl bobbleheads, t-shirts, hats, or socks, or custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. To place your first order with 10% off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today.
Well, another thing you should do, but not today, is check out this very program next week. This time, well, not this time, usually 9-ish p.m. Thursday nights, where we record, or after the fact on cspn.us. And with that, _70 on Twitter and Instagram. PCN_dirt on Twitter. PopCultureNet on Twitter. PopCultureNetwork.com. I need comics.com. ThatNewSmell.com. Tim, DOGG98 on Twitter. The Click Nation, that's DKLIQNATION on Twitter. TheClickNation.com. CB Cron on Twitter. And Comic Book Resources, where he's writing his face off, which you've heard from some of the stuff he's writing tonight. And myself, Roddycat on Twitter. News Nerds Need on Twitter. News Nerds Need Reddit. CB Caps on Instagram, and all places internet. You can find this here podcast on cspn.us. Do it today. You'll be joining us soon. All that good mess. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, CSPN's SoundCloud page. And you can go to shop.cspn.us for merch from this show and other shows therein. And with that, we come to the end of this fine show. We'll again come back next week. We'll have some more of this fine content for you guys, preferably 1 week's worth. And I don't think there's any movies to speak of or anything. But hey, regardless, things will happen. We will be here for it. And with that, folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. And it doesn't matter what your comic book show. No, I'm just kidding.
It doesn't matter what you think.
Exactly, because it matters what we think, and that's what matters. This is the Comic Book Chronicles, and we're out.
Peace. One.
Good evening, Rick. Would you believe it's Dr. Doom?
What's on your evil mind?
Hold your insulting tongue and mark my words well.
How about this rumor